Running meta ads for your SaaS company doesn't have to be complicated, but most founders are making it way harder than it needs to be, and it's why their cost per demo is through the roof. And after working with 50 plus B2B SaaS and AI clients over the past 4 years, we've tested just about every strategy under the sun, so I can tell you with confidence, there's only one way that consistently works regardless of your budget or your offer. And in this video, I'm gonna show you exactly how to set up that strategy. We're gonna go over how to set up your campaigns, your offer, your landing page, and your sales process, so every dollar that you put in actually comes back out as revenue. All right, so before we start running any types of campaigns for our clients, we're always going to understand the client economics before anything. Because if you don't understand what type of numbers that you're trying to hit with a campaign, then you don't even know what success looks like. And success should look like, for if you're running a B2B SaaS company, is a profitable return on investment within a reasonable payback period. So that's really what we want to determine for our clients before we actually start running ads, so we can set certain targets for them that actually make sense. So the first thing that we're going to figure out is what their subscription price is, because this is important in understanding how much they charge. We want to know if it's billed on monthly, annually, biannually, because that's all going to affect what it is that we recommend from a strategy perspective. Then we're going to understand what their total LTV is. Then we're also going to understand what their gross profit is, because from there we can actually determine how much a customer is actually worth to them in gross profit. So then once we understand these core things from an economics perspective, then we're also going to follow that up with their current close rate and their current show rate on any other types of funnel if they have any data for us. So we'll ask their close rate, or we'll also get their show rate. Now, typically, if they don't have these metrics, we will assume about a 20% close rate and about a 70% plus show rate on a demo, and a qualified rate, meaning the actual calls that we book on their calendar, should be north of 60%. So 60% of the calls that actually show up should be qualified. You should be closing 20% of those. So now we understand that. We want our customer acquisition cost that we calculate, which is basically how much we're looking to acquire for a customer. We want that to be obviously less than the LTV. We want the LTV to be greater than customer acquisition cost, because that means that we're profitably acquiring that customer. So that all being said, let's just say, for example, the client comes to us and they have a $10,000 LTV, they have a $1,000 a month subscription, and they make, out of that $10,000, they have an 80% margin, so they make $8,000, right? So that basically tells us that we want to make sure that their customer acquisition cost is less than $8,000, right? So ideally you want that to be in that $2,000 to $3,000 range, right? Because if it's $2,000, that means that that's a 4x that they can expect. And so what we'll go ahead and do is we'll break that down. Okay, well, we know that if we book you 10 demos at $200 a demo, right? That basically means that we can get 20 demos for $20K. Out of those 20 demos, we can get 70% to show up. What is that off the top of my head? I think that's 14 demos to show up. And then out of that, we'll say that 60% are qualified. 60% of 14 is what? Is 8.4 demos that are qualified. And then out of that, we'll have 20% close rate. So we will see that 8.4 times 0.2 equals 1.68, right? And so that would tell us that with $2,000 in spend, they can get 1.68 new customers, which means that their customer acquisition cost is going to be somewhere in the range of around like $1,500. So what that tells us is that we can spend $1,500, right, on our customer acquisition cost, and then we can get an 8x. What that tells us is that this campaign is set up for success if we can hit a $200 cost per demo. So now we know what demo we want to be targeting. Now, what we actually will do sometimes is calculate what's called your break-even cost per demo, which means, okay, how much can we spend? What's the maximum that we can spend in order to make sure that we're still profitable with the current economics in terms of how they're set up? That's phase number one, is understanding their economics, because that's going to really dictate our strategy and what is it that we actually will go ahead and implement for that. Let's go to the next thing that we do after that, which is understanding the type of funnel structure that we want to run and exactly what's going to be the best fit for them. Now, there's a couple of different types of funnels that you can run. You can run a lead magnet funnel, you can run a webinar funnel, you can run a VSL funnel, right? There's other funnels on top of this as well, but typically what we find the best converting for all of our clients is going to be this VSL funnel. So we typically start with that. If it's a really complex sale or we need to really just get more people to sign up for our services, we can always do these type of deals here. The thing is, you're going to get typically lower quality leads that come from the lead magnet. You can get higher quality leads from the webinar because they are going to be educated. It's just, in our experience, VSL funnels is what we use across the board. It's basically a video sales letter that gets people to book a call directly. It's a direct funnel. Once we understand the type of funnel structure that we're going to run, we typically will, like I said, 80-90% of the time stick with that VSL. We're then going to understand the ICP. This is super important. Before we do any type of ad work or any actual creation of what we call their cold traffic offer, we have to understand who we're talking to, right? We have to understand what their pain points are. We have to understand what their circumstances are. And then we have to understand what their desires are and their situations. This is super pivotal in being able to create, first of all, cold traffic offers that are going to resonate with your ideal client profile, and also creating copy throughout the ad, throughout the landing page, throughout the confirmation conversion page, throughout the email sequence. So if you get this right, you nail this, it's gonna set up all of the different types of copy that you need to create and all the messaging that you need to create surrounding your funnel. So we do a very big emphasis on this. What we typically ask are, what is the reason why someone buys from you? That's super important. Like, why do they buy from you, from your competitors? Like, that is also gonna tell you exactly what is it that makes you stand out. We're also gonna ask you, questions like, what are your main objections? Like, what are their false beliefs that they have about your product that aren't true? So this is gonna help us understand what they're actually going through, and then we can create super targeted copy with them. A really big unlock for us as well is getting sales calls recordings. Like, this is super valuable. And if you have these as a founder, this should be a way that you should actually create a lot of your messaging is around your sales calls recording, because it literally has the exact language that your ideal client profile is using that you can then turn into copy, and also you can turn into offers. And then also you can also just figure out exactly if you're running a proper sales process as well on the back end of things. So that is what we do from an ICP perspective before we start running copy. So we really want to understand, we want to list out all these different pain points, all these different circumstances, all these different desires, and then we can create ads and different angles for each of those. After we understand the ICP, this is when we build out the cold traffic offer, right? So I always talk about the cold traffic offer because this is pivotal in making sure that your ads actually perform well, is what are you offering them as an outcome? You have to do this when you're running meta ads. You can get away with it if you don't have one, but it's going to be a lot harder. Your messaging has to be super clear and super direct and really resonate with folks if you don't have a good cold traffic offer. So the first thing that a good cold traffic offer establishes is the desires and the outcomes of your ideal client profile. What do they actually want? So making an offer around the outcomes that they actually care about, super important. Next thing that you want to make sure that the cold traffic offer has is a time frame, right? So you can deliver X, Y, and Z results and that outcome for this client within 90 days or within 30 days or within 14 days. These types of timeframes work really well because it actually serves as a way to de-risk what your actual product does, right? Because if you have a time frame, you can expect a result within this time frame, as opposed to just saying, hey, we can help you get this outcome. Because people think, well, how long is that going to take me? And people want outcomes right away. So the quicker you can actually promise that result while also still being believable that you can get that result is actually going to help your offer be more powerful. The next thing is you want to make sure that you also have some form of risk reversal. Now, I'm giving you components of a cold traffic offer that are going to make you the best offer. Now, you can have 1, 2, 3, or you can have 1 or 2 and still create a good cold traffic offer. But if you have all 4, those are the ones that we see the best results with. So risk reversal is some form of guarantee or some form of work for free until we help you get the desired outcome that you want. Any type of risk reversal that's going to make it easier for them to go ahead and say yes to you. Because, for example, they don't know you. They've never seen your product before. It's the first time you're engaging with them. And if you're asking them for money, you want to make sure that you have a way that is easy for them to say yes to. And then the last thing that we're going to have here on top of the risk reversal is going to be your unique mechanism. This is really going to help when you are trying to stand out from competitors within your market, because a lot of times people will try similar products or similar things and they'll instantly compare you to that similar experience that you had. So for example, it always happens with the marketing agencies, like it's my world, right? We talk with a lot of companies who've tried other marketing agencies or they've had failures with other marketing agencies. And so what they do is they instantly box, marketing agencies as something that's not good, right? And so what you want to do as, like, for example, marketing agencies, you want to be able to stand out from the rest of their competitors and basically have a unique mechanism in the way that you deliver results so that you can basically say like, hey, the reason why you failed before or the reason why that thing didn't work is because you weren't doing it this way. Because people typically don't want to do the same thing that they tried last time because they think they're going to get the same results. So you have to show them that, hey, this is going to be different from what you've ever seen before. That's why the unique mechanism helps, especially if your market that's very competitive as well. Hey, real quick, whether you're already running meta ads and not getting the results you want, or you've been thinking about starting but you just don't know where to begin, that's exactly what we help clients out with. We build the entire system done for you, the campaigns, offer, landing page, sales process, and we guarantee to get your ads profitable within 90 days, or we literally give you a refund. So there's a link below to book a call with us if you want us to take a look at your current situation and see what that looks like. Anyways, let's get back into the video. So that is now that we understand that, we have the ICP and the cold traffic offer. Now we're going to build out what we call the creatives, because the creatives are super important in actually making sure that we get people to click on our ads and actually convert. So we're gonna have 2 different types of ads, which are both video ads and our static ads. Static ads just being image ads, video ads obviously just being you talking about your product and taking them through an actual journey. So in those creatives, we wanna make sure that they are following a similar format, which is basically ICP, call out, you're talking about who you're speaking to in that ad, you have some form of a hook, and then you also have an offer, you have proof that you can support that offer, and then you have a CTA, right? So this is the framework that I always say that video ads and static ads should follow. The main difference between the two is that the video ads can be longer, anywhere from 1 minute to 30 seconds to 2 minutes and 30 seconds, while static ads are just you want the text to be a lot shorter and a lot cleaner, because otherwise you're gonna just lose people with a static static ads, so you want to make sure that you condense the amount of text in that. Now, the biggest thing when you're writing video ads, and we typically see both perform well, but for video ads, they have longevity when you really get them right. So we always want to record video ads because they can really help our clients scale when we're looking to push up that spend. But the biggest thing is you want to make sure that all your hooks are very intrigue based, because with, video ads is that people typically give you about 3 seconds. So you want to make sure that the hook that you have in that first 3 seconds makes them want to continue to watch your video and really hooks them in. And so that's something you want to focus on when you are creating video ads, because that's really going to drive a lot of conversions for you, what we've seen work the best. Now, so with the creatives, you also want to test different formats within them. So for example, with video ads, there's a whole bunch of different, title style of formats that you can test. You can test a selfie style. You can test a talking head format, which is just basically you in a studio. You can test a green screen format. These are performing really well for us right now as well. You can also test a B-roll style ad. You can also test what's called a visual hook style ad, which is basically where you would show something in that video as a prop. So for example, if I was selling something and I was trying to, talk about how coffee could relate to something, you could, show the coffee cup in the ad and then, say something about that in the ad itself. So having all these different formats are going to be able to help you determine which of those actually perform the best and which of those are going to help you scale, and you can create more versions of those formats once you've actually found that winning angle. Their success of the creative is mostly going to be determined by the offer and then also the messaging in terms of what is it that you say. But then the actual formats will help you hit different pockets of buyers. So for example, some people may respond really well to selfie ads. Some people may respond really well to talking studio ads. Some people may respond well to green screen. Some people may respond well to visual hooks. So you can have all these different types of formats. You get more people in. And if you have these formats within a different ad set, you're giving yourself the best shot at success. And so on top of the video formats, you can have different types of static formats as well. So for example, you could do cartoon-based ads. You can do more corporate style ads. You could do just blank text with no background ads, right? So there's all these different types of formats that we test, and we don't know what's going to work. I always say that I don't know exactly what formats are going to perform the best. We're going to test all these different formats, and then we're going to let the data tell us what exactly works best from that. That's the creatives, and we make sure that we have these nailed in, because this is a super important part about driving success, right? Creatives do a lot of the heavy lifting for you when you're running ads. So after we build out the creatives, we are then going to send people to a landing page. The landing pages are also very pivotal for success, because if you have a really bad landing page, you're going to get no conversions from the people that actually click on your ad. So on the landing page, you want to make sure that we have an ICP call out, or we're calling out who this is for and who this is not for. So say, hey, this is not for you, for an XYZ company. We also want to make sure we have our headline, which is basically like the cold traffic offer in a way. So you can have different variations of it, but you basically want to see your cold traffic offer on the headline itself. And you have your subheadline, which is basically, think of that as you're supporting the claim that's made in your headline. So basically giving more types of social proof as to why you can help them with that outcome that you just mentioned, or even mentioning a guarantee in terms of how you can actually make sure that they have less risk by taking the bet with you. Then you're going to want to have a false solution section, which is basically breaking down all the false solutions as, the other things that they tried and why those things haven't worked. And you get, again, why that unique mechanism is really powerful, because then you can say, hey, this didn't work because of this doesn't work because of this, and this is how our product is going to work for you. So you have that what's called the process overview section. This is how we're going to actually deliver the results for you. Then we're going to have a FAQ section, and then we're also going to have a proof section that should come right above the process overview as well, which is basically you just supporting your claims. And you can mix around with how you actually place this. So you can put the proof section above the subheadline. You could put the false solution at the bottom. You don't really have to put them in this order, but this is what we just found easiest to follow. You want to have a CTBA button above the fold over here, which basically means that as soon as someone lands on your page, they should be able to see that CTA button, because you want to make sure there's the least amount of friction as possible on your landing page and driving people to do the number one thing, which is to fill out your application. So after they click on that CTA button, you're going to ask them qualifying questions. So the first qualifying question should be if they're the right type of company to be speaking to. So for example, you want to make sure that you're qualifying for role or, the actual company size, whatever it may be, figuring out whatever means qualified to you, and then making sure that first question is around authority. Next question should be around budget. If they are below a certain revenue range, or if you want to make sure that they have the money to afford what it is that you can provide to them, you can ask them a budgetary question, which is like, hey, do you have $5,000 available to invest into X, Y, and Z product, right? If you were able to get this outcome. And what this allows you to do is, first of all, you do two things. You can train Meta on the right people, because you're going to put your pixel, which we'll get into in a second, on your confirmation page, which basically trains Meta to say, hey, these people are qualified and find me more people like this person. The second thing that it does is it makes sure that you're only talking to qualified prospects who meet your criteria, because the last thing that you want to do is waste either your time or your sales team's time with a whole bunch of unqualified leads on your calendar. So after the application, it's going to go straight to a Calendly page, right? And then they're going to be able to book a time with your team. So that's basically the landing page and what the flow looks like there. So after that, they're going to be taken to a confirmation page. Now, this confirmation page is super important important in pre-selling your prospects before the call itself, because it's going to help you, first of all, have better show rates and have better close rates across the board. So on this confirmation page, you're going to have what's called your main confirmation page video, which is basically confirming the meeting and also getting them to engage with the other style of content before the call itself, right? So you want to make sure that they're going to be watching what the most commonly asked questions are before your call, so they come to your call already prepared and educated on what it is that you do. So you don't have to spend 10 to 15 minutes educating them on exactly what it is that you do. That's the worst thing that you can do during a sales call. So this confirmation page is super important that they consume, and this will help you get better qualified leads that show up with higher intent and that are easier to close. And then on top of this confirmation page, you want to have an email sequence that goes out. So this email sequence should be anywhere from 4 to 6 different emails that continue to educate, continue to sell, and actually points people back to the confirmation page, because saying, hey, like, in case you didn't watch this yet, make sure you consume this before our call. It's going to really help us stay on track and make sure that we have a good productive conversation. So this is the back end flow that we do after the call happens itself. Okay, so that's everything that happens before a sales call. So now we want to talk about what happens once they get on the sales call and the sales process that you want to take them through. So there's actually one more thing that you want to make sure that you do before the sales call itself, is you want to make sure that you have a manual outreach, which is basically you engaging with them either through calls or SMS or also LinkedIn. That's going to really help make sure that you have a good show rate on the back end of these things, because obviously if you get more people to show up for these calls, you're going to get more of them to translate into revenue. So the second thing that you want to do after you do your manual outreach is prepare a script, because so many people don't have a script going into conversations, so they don't even know where they're taking that conversation. And if you have no guardrails for a conversation, it oftentimes can go all over the place, and then you end up having no objective. So I don't think people should read directly from a script. I think you should have an outline of exactly what it is that you want to cover, and you should have a process in terms of the discovery that you do, so that you know exactly what boxes you can tick to first of all determine if they're a qualified lead and if they should move over to the proposal phase, right? So once you do your disco, which is basically understanding your prospect's pain points, what they're going through, what's separating from getting them from where they are now to where they want to go, and then you want to position your product as that solution. So then after the discovery, you want to have a proposal call, right? Where you're basically going over exactly what it is that you talked about, and you also want to demo your product. You typically don't want to demo your product right off the bat. It's not a good thing to do, because you don't even know exactly what they're looking for. And so if you just kind of feature dump everything, it's going to kind of turn them off, and then you'll get a whole bunch of think about objections. Instead, you want to make sure that you have a structured process where you do a discovery first, and then you pitch them a demo. Now, on that demo itself, you can either do that on the first call, right? So you can turn this into a 1-call close, or you can do this a 2-call, which is basically you do this discovery first and then you do a 2-call afterwards. Now, there's pros and cons to doing each approach, and then there's obviously situations where if you're more an enterprise sale, it's going to be multiple calls regardless. But if you are selling a product that's in the $1,000 to even $3,000 range, you could totally do this in a 1-call or 2-call close, depending on who your audience is. But anyways, besides that, this is going to help you have structure to your sales process and know that you have certain checkpoints that you do at each point to determine whether someone is ready for a proposal, ready for a demo, or making sure that you actually went through the full discovery. So this is really going to help you on the back end in terms of making sure that the people that are showing up are actually closing. So after the sales process, that is basically everything that you need for an end-to-end paid ad system, and that's exactly how we run ads for SaaS companies. Okay, so let's recap what we just covered. Running profitable meta ads for a B2B SaaS company comes down to 4 things: the right campaign structure, an offer that actually speaks to your ICP, a landing page built to convert cold traffic, and a sales process on the back end that can actually close. If you get all 4 of those right, you will have a revenue ATM that you can literally put $1 in and get $3 out at a minimum. So if you're a B2B SaaS company, you want our team to come in and build out this entire system done for you, there's a link below to book a call with me and my team. We'll look at your current situation, show you exactly what it would take to get your results, and also guarantee to get your ads profitable within 90 days if you are a good fit. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that is all I have for you today. Make sure to drop a comment below with what your favorite part of the video was. Anyways, hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Take it easy. Ciao.